My name is David, and I never imagined that my own home would one day become the place I felt most unwelcome. I loved my wife, Laura, with everything I had, and I had accepted her daughter, Grace, from her previous marriage as if she were my own. 4 years, we were a picture of stability, laughter at breakfast, quiet evenings together, and the small joys that make life worth living. But behind the warmth of that family, something darker began to grow, something built on lies, jealousy, and the dangerous power of words. Grace was 16 when things began to change. At first, it was little things, cold looks, sarcastic comments, and the kind of distance only a teenager could create. I thought it was just a phase, the usual tension between stepfather and stepdaughter. I tried to be patient, kind, understanding. But one evening, everything shattered. Laura came home from work, her face pale and eyes filled with disbelief. "David," she said in a shaking voice, "Grace told me everything." I didn't even know what everything meant, but the way she looked at me told me it was something terrible. Before I could speak, she shouted for me to leave, accusing me of things I would never even imagine doing. My words fell on deaf ears. No matter how much I pleaded, she refused to listen. The girl I had treated like my own child stood silently behind her mother, her expression unreadable. I packed a few clothes, my hands trembling, and walked out of the house that had been my entire world. That night, I slept in my car, heartbroken and confused, unable to process how everything had collapsed so quickly. Over the next few weeks, I tried to reach out. I called, texted, even wrote letters, not to defend myself, but to beg for truth. None were answered. Rumors began spreading among our friends and neighbors. I stopped going to work for a while, unable to face the pitying looks. Then one morning, I received a notice, divorce papers. I stared at them for a long time before signing, knowing that sometimes, even innocence isn't enough when love turns into suspicion. But fate has a strange way of revealing truth. Months after our separation, Grace's lies began to unravel. It started when one of her friends, out of guilt, confessed to Laura that Grace had made everything up because she resented how close her mother and I had become. Laura was devastated. She called me for the first time in nearly a year, her voice trembling with regret. I met her at a small cafe, the same one where we'd shared our first date years ago. She looked older, broken, the sparkle in her eyes dimmed. "David," she whispered, "I destroyed the only man who ever truly cared for me." I wanted to be angry, to tell her how much pain she had caused, but all I felt was sadness. "You believed her," I said quietly. "And maybe that's what hurt the most." Tears filled her eyes as she told me Grace had confessed everything, how she had lied, how she had watched her mother crumble under guilt. Laura asked if there was any way we could start over, but by then, too much had changed. I had rebuilt my life from the ashes she left behind. I had moved to a smaller town, started a small carpentry business, and learned to find peace in solitude. Still, I didn't want revenge or bitterness to define me. I told her the truth, that I forgave her, but forgiveness didn't mean return. It meant freedom. The divorce was finalized soon after, but its impact was greater than either of us expected. Grace, consumed by guilt, began to spiral. She struggled in school, lost friends, and eventually had to move in with her father. Laura tried to reach out to her, but their bond had been damaged beyond repair. The lies that once tore us apart had now turned their world upside down. As for me, I found a quiet kind of happiness. I met new people, made new friends, and discovered that life has a strange way of rewarding those who endure pain with patience. Sometimes, at sunset, I sit outside my workshop, listening to the wind move through the trees, and I think about how fragile trust can be. I no longer hate Laura or Grace. I simply hope they find the peace I found after losing everything. Love, I've learned, is not just about passion or promises. It's about truth, and once that truth is betrayed, it leaves scars that never fully fade. But scars are not always signs of weakness. Sometimes, they are proof that you survived something that could have destroyed you. My divorce didn't just end a marriage. It exposed the cost of blind belief and the quiet strength it takes to walk away from what once defined you. And in doing so, it turned their world upside down, and gave me back my own.